as I always do, instead of taking a view from one side, well, these are activists. A lot of people say, well, forget about what's the procedure is. Because they are activists, I belong to their cause. I believe in their mission. So everything they do is correct and above everything else, even above the rule of law. Right? That's what we see worldwide. All right, not just in Hong Kong, in America. Right? Same thing. People think they can mob Capitol Hill because they think that their mission is sacred. But that is wrong. Society can only exist if the basic rules that protects people, the rule of law, is observed. That's my first point. The second point is you need to understand the subject. First, when people talk about, suppression of Hong Kong freedoms, yes, what freedom? Suppression of Hong Kong's rights. What rights? There are two very distinct things. The phrase is, the right to assembly, it's called a right, not a freedom. Okay? The right to vote is a right. Okay? Now, basic freedoms are freedom to travel. Right? You can't lock me up. Freedom to work. Right? These are the cardinal principles under the International Covenant. Freedoms. Then you talk about rights and privileges. Okay? So, for example, the right to vote, the right to stand to be elected. Right? These are rights. Right? And these rights under the covenant are under certain what's called reasonable restrictions, which applies in all countries. Okay? So first you need to have the rule book out. You're crying foul that there's been a breach of the rules. Right? Well, take out the rule book. Which rule? Which sector? And why should this apply to me and not to you? Why should there be double standards? All right? Very simple. Now, the situation in Hong Kong in 2019 is no different in nature from all the unrest in America. In two different areas, they are very comparable. One is Black Lives Matter, all right? To say that, well, we think we've been discriminated on, black people, and we think both our rights and freedoms have been trampled on, all right? Now, that is a very large sector of American population, or the black community, all right? Now, first thing is that, well, number one, is that happening? Number two, what is the reaction? Is the reaction going to be rioting, looting? Right? That's not, just because there's one wrong doesn't mean you can go and commit another wrong on society by just rioting, looting, nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, it's just free for all. Right? And with any society, once you have a breakdown of the discipline services in the front line, then in every country, human nature, there's always those who go out to loot, who you know, as we say, rob whilst there's a fire. All right? There will be those, right? Now, that's one aspect. The other aspect is political, right? In Hong Kong, it's political, right? They say they want democracy. I'm trying to understand the case of these rioters. They want democracy. They want universal suffrage. Well, there I'm scratching my head, because what is universal suffrage? It's one of the 5 demands under the rioting request, right? 5 demands. It's a tag-on. The first 4 is all to do with the rendition bill, all right, and the people who want to be pardoned and all that, right? That's 4. The last one, tag-on, is universal suffrage. Well, why don't they own up to say it was offered by the central government, expressly offered by the central government in 2016, right? And I mean universal suffrage, which means the vote of each person is equal. So whoever has the most votes succeeds. That's called universal suffrage. Is that the American system?
Is that the British system?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, let's start with America. You go with Trump, or you start with Bush and Gore. Does the American people really understand their system? Right? Why is it devised like that? It's a whole lot of historical reasons, because they are all sovereign states, and the states join in a union. And as Biden says, every time there's a president being inaugurated, they repeat this mantra, to the US Constitution, the US way of life is for us to perfect the union. So the union is not perfect. The political structure is not perfect. It needs to be continuously perfected to keep up with the times, right? So now the Union and the Confederacy are very different creature under the US Constitution. Now, then you talk about, well, very simple. We know that the states are sovereign. They give their power to the Union, so you have a federal government, but those they don't give back, they keep their powers, fine. But the federal president is the president of all Americans. He's not the president of 50 states. It's all Americans. So therefore, all the more reason that it should be one person, one vote equally. And all the more reason when America is putting itself forward as the beacon of freedom and democracy in the world. That the US values are ones people will fight to get into, to see the Statue of Liberty in New York, to say this is the mother of democracy. Is it? Is it? In which case, ask American people, why is it not President Gore but Bush? Millions more votes. Why is it not Clinton but Trump? Right? Ross Perot in 1976 was the only person in America who didn't want to join the Republican Party or the Democratic Party to run for president. He ran as an independent. He got 10% of the national vote. What is being offered to Hong Kong in 2016 is that one person, one vote for chief executive. They don't want it. Why? We want civic nomination. What's that? Oh, civic nomination in 193 countries of the UN, only 3 countries has it. South Korea, I think it's Chile, and then Taiwan. And we don't regard Taiwan as a country. So only 2 countries have it. And why? Why is it that most countries do not have civic nomination? Because their political systems are mature. They will have political parties representing the mainstream thinking. In England, Tories and Labour. In America, Republicans and Democrats. So you don't have to explain your political for every time a candidate comes out. So that's the whole thing about party nomination. There's no civic nomination in America. And because of that, they don't want it. I believe they never want universal suffrage. I believe that the opposition in Hong Kong never wanted to get what they want. Why? Because what they want really is to overthrow the central government. What they want is not a good working of one country, 2 systems, to the extent of even independence for Hong Kong. They want to undermine. They want to undermine the whole national fabric of development by Hong Kong being pushed into an Arab Spring situation. Well, it didn't work. All right? There is no doubt an agenda, a predetermined agenda by those countries who stands to benefit from an adversarial position with China. Right? And we all know who they are and what they are doing. And therefore, they never connected. And that's my other point. Hong Kong is not North Korea. You can come here any day. A lot of the international community lives and works in Hong Kong, live streams from Hong Kong every minute. What is it about Hong Kong that people don't know? All you need to do is to connect with the people of Hong Kong. Find out what is happening. Talk to us. Does that happen? No. Immediately, there's an international narrative predetermined, which is, oh, all rights and freedoms are being trampled. Right? Let's talk about it. I've never had one person come to me and say, how do you find freedoms being undermined, your rights being lost? Let's at least have a discussion, right? Doesn't matter what my point of view is. Let's sit down with different points of view and sit down. And then everyone has a chance to tell the world what's happening in Hong Kong. Has it ever been done by any of these countries or their proxies? Never. The minute they come out is to condemn. Oh, it's the end. So what's next? Well, let's tear down the edifice. Oh, judges in Hong Kong from England? No way. Doesn't matter if the judges says, nobody interfered with us. We're contributing this national security law you don't like. Well, I'm an English judge. I will sit in the Court of Final Appeal and I will interpret this. You don't want me to interpret it? Do you see? So the whole thing, it's so patently obvious that the improper political pressure brought to bear on judges, not just judges coming into Hong Kong. It's British judges. It's British rule of law that's facing also an attack by the British Foreign Minister if he behaves like that, to tell his judges not to go to a place for political reasons. Right? So once you have such an agenda, then you find that, all right, what's next? You come out, you just condemn, and you destroy Hong Kong, right? You do not connect with the people of Hong Kong. As far as your Hong Kong is concerned, Hong Kong is already a basket case, written off. It's just like Syria. Open your doors, let refugees come in. It's just like Syria. Is it? Is it like that in Hong Kong? Instead of connecting, you want to destroy Hong Kong. Trump says Hong Kong can no longer be considered itself a WTO member, and there's no such thing as made in Hong Kong. It's another mainland city. By one stroke, one country, two systems is completely wiped off. We are now treated as another mainland city. What about the 7 other million people here in Hong Kong who doesn't agree, who says, no, it's working for us? What? What do you do? Right? You immediately tear down the edifice. British government, American government, Australian government, Canadian government, extradition treaties, all rescinded. Really? Is that how you want to tell the whole world that the West really leads in moral superiority? Is that how you behave? Really? Double standards, sheer hypocrisy, right? And all this continuing, right? Just continuing in the narrative that they will come out. Every week you come out, there will be a condemnation. There's no, well, what about the people of Hong Kong? If according to you, we are in such dire straits, why don't you connect with us, talk to us, come and speak to us, right? I have to go and fight to speak on CNN, to speak to the BBC, and some it never sees the light of day because it doesn't fit their narrative. I asked to speak to the British government. I tried the Labour Party. I had a Zoom conference with one of their officials in the Labour Party who deals with the Hong Kong portfolio. And I sat there with 2 leading English lawyers in Hong Kong to tell him, this is wrong. Please tell the British government not to do this, not to stop judges coming to Hong Kong, stop lawyers to come to work in Hong Kong, to completely cut off Hong Kong. This is not the way. What happened? I persuaded him, never came back. Never came back. All right? So it's basically not about the people of Hong Kong. It's about taking China down. And if you can use Hong Kong, we use Hong Kong. We use Xinjiang, we use Xinjiang. Whatever we can use to bring you down. Now, that is very threatening to the whole international order in the world. That is threatening to a way of life. Doesn't matter whether it's a Western way of life, Islamic way of life, any other way. The whole point of the United Nations is that people of different ideologies, of different political systems must first accommodate each other. And then you work together by cooperation, not by coming out with confrontation, right? And condemnation, right? Then how do you dial back? Do you think America will dial back? Britain will dial back? No, it escalates, right? An aircraft carrier is to be sent to the South China Seas. Really? Is it the days of the East India Company coming back again? What's the point? Right? A global power? Might is right? Right? Once you have the international narrative, you pay one price. Once you get everybody's attention, the show, the story must go on. You will have to make good all these actions where they're justified. Time will prove, right? So it's not something you can say condemn and that's it, and destroy. Can you destroy Hong Kong? Not if the people of Hong Kong have anything to do with it, apart from the central government. No. So I think that it is really time for people to practice what they preach. What is democracy? It's not about might over right, just the might of majority votes. The minority should suffer, right? That's not the way things are done. It's accommodation, understanding, right? Exchanging, interchanging, find out what's happening, right? And none of these is being practiced. So what is this holy mission that America and its allies are embarking on against China? One thing I think Trump is honest about, their past president: America first. That's what it's all about.